Hey, everybody. So today we're getting into our final lesson of triangle proofs. Today we're going to be doing everything. We're going to be doing the statements and the reasons. All right. So, a really good idea is to have this piece of note in front of you because I think the reasons are maybe the trickier part of the two, parts. So, yeah, we're going to go through some of these, try them out. There's a lot of, I guess, seemingly a lot of work to do on these, but really once you get into the flow of it, they're quick and yeah, they're not too shabby. So yeah, let's get into it. All right, so starting with number one here. All right, statements. We'll put them on the left. Reasons go on the right. We could label it, but I don't think it's necessary. So let's just go. Let's try these out. So very first thing, what I like to do is I like to separate all of them with a line like this, just to keep things nice and orderly. Okay, so if you want to do that along with me, I think it's not a bad idea. All right, but yeah, our first thing we're always going to start with is the first given statement. Okay, they're telling us that segment AB is congruent to segment CD. All right, which by the way, they're not using the little segment symbols on this, but they should have, or whoever made this. All right, yeah. So from here, what's the reason? Why does this exist? This is given to us. Yep, there's nothing else we can do with this information, but we can write it onto our triangles. So let's show that AB is congruent to CD. All right, moving along, I have another given piece of information. All right, so let's go ahead and write it out. I know that AC is congruent to segment DB. Okay, how do I know that? It's been given. All right, and let's show it up here. AC is this thing. BC, or sorry, D is this thing. Okay, there's nothing else we can do with that. All right. So when we're out of information, this is when these problems, start to get a little tricky. What do we do? Where do we go? All right. That's why putting this information on the triangle is so important because we realize, oh, we only have two pieces of information on these triangles. We need to find a third thing, a third missing piece of information. All right. And here's what I noticed: they share a side length. So I know that side length is congruent to itself. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and put the bars first. All right. But yeah, that is going to be my next statement. I know that side length CB is congruent to side length CB. All right. Why do I know that? This is where our reasons come into play. Anytime something is shared between the two triangles, that's the reflexive property, right? So, reflexive property. Cool. Once we get three pieces of information written on our triangles, we know that we're at our final step. Again, another reason why putting this on is kind of necessary. All right, here's a good thing. The very final statement is given to us. All right, they're telling us, this is what we're trying to prove. And that is what we can now say that, yeah, these triangles are congruent to one another. So triangle ABC is congruent to triangle DCB. Why do we know that? Well, looking at this information, we have three congruent sides on both. That is side, side, side. All right, and you guys know this, but it's worth pointing out, that very last reason is always going to be one of our triangle congruence theorems. All right, so another piece of notes you might want to have in front of you if you haven't memorized these yet. Okay, so yeah, that's the process. We're going to try out, a few more. So let's keep moving. Take a look at number two. Okay, so first thing, we always start with the very first given information. Don't overcomplicate it. I know there's a lot to do on these problems, but don't overwhelm yourself. Always check to see what's my first given piece of information. That's going to be your first statement. Okay, so AC is congruent to segment EC. Why do we know that? It's been given. Okay, let's go ahead and show it on our triangles. Here's segment AC, here's segment EC. Okay, that's all we can do with that. So moving on, we notice, yeah, we have another given piece of information, right? BC is congruent to DC. So segment BC is congruent to segment DC. All right, why do we know it? They gave it to us. All right, let's go ahead and show it on our triangles. Here's BC is congruent to DC. All right, that's all the information I'm given. Now I notice, all right, I need to find one more piece of information on these triangles. And I notice, yep, we do have vertical angles right here. All right, by the way, I know, vertical angles is going to be my next reason. If you wanted to, you could start by writing the reason first. There's, that sometimes that's not a bad idea. I know I have vertical angles. Okay, so, if you feel like you want to start with the reason before the statement, that's perfectly fine. All right, but yeah, let's go ahead and point it out. Remember, when we name these angles, we need to name it going around the whole thing. So I'm going to call the one on the left BCA, and I'm going to call the one on the right ECD. So angle BCA is congruent to angle ECD. All right, we have our three pieces on. We now know we are done, which, by the way, again, I can go and realize, all right, side angle side is going to be the reason why these triangles are congruent if I want to start with the reason. All right, and there's my statement. Okay, so triangle ABC is congruent to triangle EDC. Okay, cool. So I'm going to have you guys try out actually numbers 3 and 4 on your own. Okay, so go ahead, take a couple minutes, pause the video, try these out, and then we'll keep moving on from here. Okay, so I'm going to leave these to you. I'm not going to go over them in the video just because we've seen these problems. If you have any questions on whether they're right or wrong, definitely talk to me. But I want to keep moving along and take a look at some other examples. Okay, so we're skipping past quite a few. Let's take a look at number 8. Okay, so first things first, here's my first given statement. AD is perpendicular to BC. So let me draw my line. All right, so segment AD is perpendicular to segment BC. Why do I know that? Given. Okay, so here's the big thing. I was just told that I have perpendicular lines. All right, my first thought is, all right, I can get some more information out of this. Okay, and really, if I'm being honest, my first thought is that I know these two reasons are going to follow for my next two steps. Okay, so if I were doing this, I would probably write both of these out at the same time. All right, there's no shame in doing that or whatever, but let's just go ahead and do it. This is something I want you guys to be able to think. So I know that perpendicular lines is going to be followed by definition of perpendicular. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and write that out as my next reason. Definition of perpendicular. Okay, I know then that definition of perpendicular is always followed by all right angles are congruent. So again, I'm just going to go ahead and write that out. All right angles congruent. Okay, I think that's a good idea to, put those reasons and then deal with the statements just so you don't forget to do them. It's really easy to just skip past it, Okay, so yeah, let's back up a bit. If these two lines are perpendicular, here's what we know. These two angles here and here are right angles. Okay, they already showed this one, but we also need to show that one. Okay, and that is my next thing. I know that this angle and this angle are right angles. All right, I'm going to name this one angle ABC. Angle ABC. And this angle, I'm going to call it DBC. And I'm just going to say are right angles. Okay, now that I've established that those are right angles, my next statement is the fact that since they're both right angles, they're congruent to one another. Okay, so I'm going to use the same name for these angles, but now I can say that angle ABC is congruent to angle DBC. All right, and just to follow up with the reason why those are congruent is because all right angles are congruent. The reasons, they make sense. Okay, cool. So that's all I can get from that given statement. Moving on, the next thing I notice is that we are told something is being bisected. Okay, so there's my next statement. I'm going to just draw a couple of these lines. Actually, I'm going to extend this thing because I know we're going to go down here. Okay, so yeah, let's write this out. So segment BC bisects angle ACD. All right. Why do I know that? Be careful. It would be tempting to say, oh, bisects, right here, definition of bisect. No, be careful. The reason why we know this is because it's been given to us. But I do know that since bisecting is happening, my next reason is going to be definition of bisect. Just to kind of point it out. Where is it at? Right here. Definition of bisect. All right. So just so I don't forget, I'm going to start with that and I'm going to say, okay, definition of bisect. Okay, but what is being bisected? What congruent pieces do I get out of it? All right, well, angle ACD is being bisected, this angle right here. So it's being cut into two congruent angles. This angle is congruent to this angle. Okay, I'm going to call this top one angle ACB. So angle ACB is congruent to this angle on the bottom, DCB. Okay, cool. So there's all my given information, two pieces of information on the triangle. I need one more thing. All right, you guys are getting good at this. This shared side length is going to be congruent to itself. All right, so I'm kind of running out of room here. Okay, but I'm going to call this side length side CB. Okay, so segment CB is congruent to itself. Segment CB, whenever something's congruent to itself, reflexive property. Okay. All right. I'm looking at my triangles. I'm thinking, all right, now what? Well, I have the three pieces of information on the triangles. Now I know I'm done. All right. So I just need to figure out, why are these triangles congruent? Well, I have two angles and a side length in between. I know that's because angle, side, angle. All right. And I cut it off, but let's see. ABC is congruent to DBC. Triangle ABC is congruent to triangle DBC. All right. In my opinion, if you can do this problem, you can do this entire worksheet. All right. There's a lot going on, I know, but if you've been keeping up throughout the lessons, I'm thinking that you're feeling okay on this. All right. So yeah, I think, let's see. I guess I did have one more I want to do with you guys. So before I do, real quick, on number 11, you're going to see this faint line right here. Ignore that. That is not part of your triangles. So you just ignore it. It's not there. It's not part of your problem on that one. Okay, but the last one I did want to look at was number 10 here. All right. So yeah, let's go through this, and then that'll be it for me. Okay. So first thing, C is the midpoint of AE. There's my statement. All right, segment AE. All right, let me draw my line. Okay, why do I know that? Because it's been given to me. Okay, here's what I'm hoping you're thinking. Oh, they just told me I have a midpoint. Well, I know my very next reason is going to be definition of midpoint. And if I were doing this problem, I would just start with that, definition of midpoint. Okay, now we can make some sense out of that and actually get the statement here. If C is the midpoint of AE, we know AE is being cut into two congruent halves. All right, so I now am able to say that this segment is congruent to this one. AC is congruent to CE. Okay, cool. So there's that. Moving along, I now have another given statement, parallel lines. All right, they're saying that AB is congruent to segment DE. All right. So what does that do? What does that mean? Okay, well, when we get parallel lines, we often get congruent angles. Okay, but what angles are congruent? Let's see. There's my parallel lines. All right, here's the thing. There's actually two transversals. There's this one and there's this one. Okay, but here's the thing about these problems. If you ever see angles numbered, that's kind of a hint that they want you to focus on those. Okay, so that's why I'm going to focus on this transversal, because I notice that angles 1 and 2 are alternate interior angles. All right, and that means they are congruent. Okay, so there's my next statement. Angle 1 is congruent to angle 2. Why? Because alternate interior angles. All right, and I'm noticing I forgot to put my reason here, but it's given to us. So yeah, let's just get that in there real quick. All right, cool. So there's all our given information. I'm looking at my triangles and I'm noticing, okay, I only have 2 pieces of information on these. Actually, oh wait, I forgot to write on in these angles. Now I have 2 pieces of information. I need one more thing, and yep, vertical angles. This angle is congruent to this one. Okay, and again, if I were doing this, I would probably start with the reason. Okay, there it is. Vertical angles. All right, and let me see. I'm going to make this go down. Okay, vertical angles, and that means they're congruent. All right, I cut myself off. Let me go back up. I'm going to call this one ACB. I'm going to call this one DCE. So angle ACB is congruent to angles DCE. Okay, finally, now I have my 3 pieces of information. Now I can say my triangles are congruent, and it looks like 2 angles and a side in between is angle, side angle. Okay, and that's why I can say triangle ABC is congruent to triangle EDC. Oof, yes, so a lot of work on this. But it's not impossible. It's using a lot of prior knowledge. So try out the rest of these problems. Check out your other notes. They will help you a bit, but definitely try them on your own without referring too much to old problems. Okay, and ask me some questions as you make your way through. Okay, guys, have a good one.